don't have a whole lot going on, maybe it's because of the weather, but we'll see what we can get done here. I want to thank Scott Irvish for making the trek down here for this short meeting.
I try to come as many of these as I can.
Very good, very good. Stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
There's a flag in the corner.
We do have a flag in the corner.
Oh, yeah.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call. I'll note that Joe Bogren is not going to be here tonight. He had a death in the family this week, so he's kind of occupied with family things. And Dave Rushford called or emailed me and said he wasn't going to make it because he was out of town or doing something with work. All right. Public comment. Do we have any public comment? Ryan.
Okay, you may already know about the wellness fair on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I got a flyer for that. And then December I had the craft fair at the Victory Church, and there's been a lot of requests for more, so we have the time is to be announced, but May 2nd is the springtime craft fair that we're doing. And then we have Gwinn Fun Days. They're looking for craft vendors to participate in there. For the craft fair that I'm hosting, it's free for any Sawyer residents, and it's $10 for anybody who lives outside, who doesn't live within Sawyer.
That's May 2nd, you said?
May 2nd, yeah. Also, for the sled race, this is mostly for West Branch. I have North Country Disposal coming out with 2 porta-johns, and I have Salvation Army is bringing out their food truck. We have about 500 hot dogs and enough to feed everybody, hot dogs and cocoa. And I had the road commission come out and do what they could with the parking lot. I'm looking for somebody to come out with a tractor. I was hoping maybe you could help out with something, or maybe y'all will know somebody. We can go out there and do some finishing touches on the parking lot and maybe push some snow out of the way so there's room to park along the road there.
Okay, so tell me now, you said the road commission did come out and push the snow back a little bit?
Yeah, they cleared the parking lot, but they just have don't have the size vehicle to do it what we need.
They didn't have a front end loader?
I was just told on the phone that they would send somebody out and do what they could.
Okay.
And they came out and they pushed it out, cleared out the parking lot area, but I still need, there's a big pile of snow blocking access to the hill that needs to be pushed out, and I was told that it would require a tractor or a dozer or something. I was hoping maybe somebody knows Van Dam, and put it, a whisper in their ear or something.
I could ask Van Dam.
That would be
Ask Van
awesome.
Dam. Otherwise, I don't know if the county has anything or could do that for the.
Because there's a
It
lot
is
of
municipal
people,
property.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm thinking that the closest might be our wastewater treatment plant has a new front end loader. Like it's like a 2.5 cubic yard bucket on it, not huge. But
Oh, that's all you need, though.
yeah, I don't typically remove stuff from the airport too regularly. So.
No, but the
Fairgrounds has one, a big one.
no, but you're saying not the airport. You're saying from the wastewater. Yeah, that's not very far. Can you? Is that okay? Can you have them run up
Yeah,
there?
I'll talk to Dwayne and see what are you thinking?
as much of Sporty Lake Road.
So when? Should they have an event there?
Well, the problem might be
Before the 22nd.
it's gonna maybe tie down to where CDLs have to. Do they play in on front end loaders?
No, absolutely not. Matter of fact, it's funny you say that because I have a case going right now.
Okay.
Midway Reynolds.
Okay.
So any kind of vehicle that is primarily meant to be used off-road, which is a front end loader, a forklift, or whatever, does not require CDLs, and it doesn't require no-fault insurance. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
I'll have you. Can I get your number?
Yeah, you have my number, right?
I know I have an email address, but I don't know if I have your cell phone.
I'll give you my cell phone after the meeting.
Sure, and then we'll talk to Dwayne, and Dwayne can give you a call.
The Sporty Lake Road for the stretch from coming in where I think it's Voodoo right there, and then goes down past the hill, if that could be pushed out of the way so people have a place to park, and then clear the snow in front of the hill that was pushed out from the parking lot so that we can actually have access to go up the hill. I know we can't grade. I've had 2 different people try to grade the hill and they couldn't get to it. So
So the county, when the road commission came to do the parking lot, they pushed a mound of snow, in front of the access to the hill, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they pushed everything out to the edges of the parking lot,
Mhm.
which kind of avoids the ability to get up on the hill.
Okay.
They did the best they could.
So you're talking about maybe clearing that big hump out and moving
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And then
Okay.
I've got one last thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm putting together a ride for Parkinson's disease, because obviously I have it.
Yeah.
And what the plan is to bicycle ride, whoever wants to ride from Gwinn to, the, what's it called? Little Presque Isle in
Yep.
Marquette. And I'm trying to get together, I've got one bicycle shop that's willing to work, and they've got about a dozen veterans who want to ride too, disabled vets.
Yep.
And the idea is to have people who want to ride in the event have the tickets, sponsored tickets, that they get people to sponsor them. So if they complete the ride, they donate a certain amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
I have another person who does these kind of events that's sending me a blueprint of exactly how to set it up. Active Fitness is looking into sponsoring it, and I haven't talked to the local bike shops yet, but I think that would be something that they'd be interested in. And it would be, I think, really cool if the SOA and the Community Alliance might want to put their name on it too, and just have a big event with as many businesses and whatnot that we can get together to sponsor, even if it's just like $10 or something,
Yeah.
to raise money for Parkinson's awareness.
I mean, we're happy to put our name on it, to start operations with our, we don't have the money, obviously, but we're happy to do what we can to help if it would help.
Yeah, I'll know more. The idea is to do it the first week of summer,
Okay?
just after spring, so the temperatures and everything.
So you're
are nice.
talking like, you say summer, I mean, different people call different things summer around here, but I mean, you're talking like May or June or
I'm thinking more like June,
June?
like the first week of June.
The first week of June is that Conway River sale in the township, so.
Okay, so yeah, you gotta dodge events a little bit,
Yeah.
think about what you're doing, you know?
So I'm still waiting on the paperwork, the blueprint on how to put it all together. I'm just trying to get the information out there now so people can start thinking about
Okay,
it.
perfect, yeah. All right.
And, see,
And you need waivers, you said, you're gonna email me, but you said you need waivers for,
the book kiosks,
for book kiosk and for,
canned food kiosks, and the sled race.
now, tell me, for the book kiosk, and I asked you already, but it's, I understand, you wanna, give a waiver so that people use the book kiosk,
People that
are
host,
waiving liability to you or to,
yeah, the people who host the kiosk are accepting liability for it being on their property.
okay, so you want the people that, right, you put the kiosk on in somebody's yard right now, and we wanna make sure that they're, have some kind of immunity, although you realize waivers aren't a 100% thing, but
Yeah.
it
Well,
it helps.
it's in case of like somebody, they put it in their yard and somebody locks a kid in it like last year. And then they don't turn around and sue me or something. Like,
Okay.
they're accepting responsibility for putting it on their property.
Oh, you want the property owner to
Yeah.
give you, oh, I thought you meant people that were using the book kiosk, so I was trying to think, how are you gonna get them all to sign it, okay. You're saying the people that on their property are gonna give you
Yeah.
a waiver,
Yeah, give me a waiver
Okay.
so that if something happens, that they're not gonna turn around and sue me, but
Yep.
I will, I'll go and I'll do repair them and take care of
Yep.
them and everything.
okay?
It's just so that nothing's happened in the past year,
Yeah,
but,
okay, so, email me that information, remind me, okay? I got a note of it, but again, you should email it to me, all right? Anything else?
I think that's all that I have at the moment. I'll probably think of something later.
Okay,
I have something for you, Ryan.
What's that?
Which health company was that? Or the
active,
fitness?
active,
Active Fitness. I talked to them today and they were really interested in participating.
okay.
You're talking about the trail? Well, do I got a deal for you?
The fitness trail,
Yep. At our transfer facility, people donate returnables. And you are welcome to them, and it's a big box. There's probably $200 or $300 worth in
that would be awesome. All for the trails, yeah, cool.
there. Yep, all for the trail.
But you have to, you gotta go through the pain of coming and getting them, I guess, and returning them somewhere.
I'm
but-
Yeah,
retired,
man.
I've got time.
So, yeah, I mean, it's gotta be
It'll fit in the back of my truck.
5x5
Wow.
wood box, and when I looked at it the other day, it was well over half full. So,
Bring garbage bags.
I did, just remember one other thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sue Ann Hardiman sent you an email.
Okay.
She asked me to make sure that you talk about it tonight.
I can talk about it, it's a little scathing, but. I'll
And
talk
I
about
had,
it.
I had, an idea, if you enjoy, or if you think this video thing is gonna work out, it would be really cool if we could create an SOA Facebook page, and then we could live stream straight to your Facebook page, and then everybody could have I could put the link out to all the other Facebook pages for them to go to your page and watch the live stream, and then
Okay.
that way you'd have your own site and everything.
You know, from my point of view, and we're a board, it's not, you know, it's not my board, we're a board. And, but from my point of view, my individual point of view, I have no problem with having a web page or having a Facebook page or live streaming or anything else. I like communication to the community. The problem I have is, and if you, maybe you've already noticed this, I'm really busy and I have a hard time with enough time. And I'm not really technologically inclined to
I'll
go
get it
figure
all
out the
set
Facebook
up so
stuff.
there's nothing
If you
have
wanna
to
do it,
Yeah.
I'm fine with it,
If
as
the
long as the
only
rest
thing
of the
you
board.
have to do is have your name down as an administrator,
That's
and
fine.
then I go down, the others, like, the board could all be administrators or moderators, and I'd have to
Okay.
be a moderator on there, so.
Are we
that
gonna,
so
but are we
that-
gonna have then people commenting and writing things on there, and then does that mean we're gonna get beat up real bad, or does it not?
I believe we can turn off,
Absolutely.
turn everything off, all the commenting and everything.
I'll just
off.
have it go outgoing.
Yeah, it would just be, yeah, with the live stream, it's only outgoing, if you don't turn on the comment
Okay.
threads, then it doesn't matter.
And I don't mind
People get
comments,
emailed.
exactly like Ms. Hardeman did, and she sent us this, that's fine. I'm all about communication, I like that. I just don't wanna have, I think that some of this electronic media these days is too easy for people to be, unfriendly.
So that's
And,
why we
you know,
turned the commenting off.
Yep.
So it's just the live stream thing, and on the page, we can say, for questions, comments, or concerns, email your SOA@gmail.com.
Perfect, yeah. Because we don't get that much, and I wish we did.
Sue Ann's idea was for the Facebook page, and then
Okay.
a bunch of other people jumped in and said that was a good idea.
Okay. And we're, okay,
Now I'm done.
okay, all right. So we have, any public comments, Scott?
No, nothing.
So, okay. You, Jean?
No.
Ms. Nordine? No? Okay, approval of agenda.
I'll move to approve.
a second.
Okay, we have a motion and support to approve the agenda as written. Any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pass unanimously. All right, approval of the minutes from January. Have you had a chance to look through them, or you wanna do that real quick? You have it already, Mike?
I did once, but it was just gonna do.
Okay, go ahead, take your time. We seem to have a very small meeting tonight, so there's plenty of time.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
I support.
I have a motion and support to approve the minutes from the January 9, 2020 meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I guess I forgot to ask for comments, but we skipped right to it. All right, new business, parking ordinance. So we, you know, we've been going round and round, and we were so happy to get the parking ordinance done, but it, you know, since we're a part-time board, it's very difficult sometimes to get the detail down and the procedure down, and so now we're running into the last parts of these things. So the road commission, provided us a no-cost permit, so they had action at their last meeting, and they said that we needed that to put signs in the right-of-way. Okay, so now we can put signs. Tim, I think you were gonna talk about signs and how much they were gonna cost, and any kind, were you gonna get some information on it?
Well, right, I'm still waiting on the size, there's a particular size that you were gonna get from the road commission or town?
Oh, they didn't, oh,
They did tell us black and white.
That's all they said is black and white, didn't say what size. And I didn't ask.
Okay, so that's where we're at. And West Branch will cover the cost for probably 6 signs.
Right. So I need to ask,
You know,
If-
unless they're
if
4 by 8
size
sheets
specific.
of signs, then that's gonna be,
no,
but if they're the, what, 8 by 11 or 13 inches, you know, what I'm talking about.
yeah, I would imagine they're gonna be about, 8 to 10 inches by
Well, I think,
12 to 14.
what I
would
really
think,
truly
but-
think is, we're gonna have to have 2 different types of signs. We're gonna have to have the little bigger signs that talk about the winter parking ban
Okay,
from, 1st of November to the end, you know, and then we're gonna probably have to put out small no parking signs for,
just a year round,
the right of way, you know, on one side of the street.
okay. Did you envision them going on, just at the
Well, and
opening?
eventually, we're gonna end up having to put signs on every street that says no parking on the side of the street. So, I'm assuming, because when they're gonna start fighting, if they start fighting it with the police, you know, and then it's not gonna be posted properly. But to start out with, I think the 3 signs, or maybe even 6 signs that say parking ban, and then, cause you can't get all the information on one sign.
Okay. So we're gonna need one sign for the, winter ban and one just for the general parking.
Right. And a lot of times, the one side, the no parking on the side of the street is just a P with just say no at circle and cross slashed, and, yeah, and then
Okay. So I'll check with the road commission, so I should have done that, but I didn't get around to it.
yeah. And if you email me before next week, I can get the signs ordered. But we're not gonna be able to put them up right.
Right.
And then we gotta figure out
Okay.
who's gonna put them up.
Well, the problem with putting them up is that you really need to call Miss Dig, or else you're gonna be pushing them
Well,
through-
is there
pushing through cable.
already, existing road poles up there that are setting that we can put them up on?
Oh,
And of course, maybe we'll have to call Miss Dig. I realize it ain't gonna get done this next month.
no, it's gonna be a spring job, and I know
And
that's.
I
a-
thought
yeah.
that Foresight said their public works would probably put those up.
I think they did say that. They said if West Branch pays for the signs, they'll go put them up, right? More or less, was that the idea?
Or maybe that was you volunteering it for them.
No, I think Joe was here, I think.
I don't remember typically, but I do remember the discussion of it.
I do too,
Yeah.
seems right.
And I can't remember if Joe was here or not. So it might have
All
been
right.
you volunteering them,
It might have been me volunteering. All right,
or maybe we can get the water department to do it.
so West Branch will probably pay for the signs now that's reasonable, right?
Right.
So the signs. and
You know, we have
Foresight
money in the budget to pay for some of this stuff.
Installed, right, got it.
So,
Okay, so then we have that issue, then we have, I don't know what happened with the sheriff, because we were all on board with this, and, I'm gonna probably have to go back to him.
June,
Because, Charity Mason was really good, and we sent her this ordinance, and she said she'll enforce it great as a magistrate. She said she has other ordinances from, I think, the city of Issaquah and somewhere else, that they enforce. And then the sheriff, we had emailed it out, and Foresight said they were good with enforcing it. The sheriff said they were good with enforcing it. Then there was a question about tickets, and how we're gonna do the tickets, so they weren't the paper ones that dissolved in the rain, and we'll have to work through that. Then the next thing I knew, I got an email about a week ago from, Dan Willie, that said, we didn't realize this was a township ordinance, and we can only enforce county ordinances, so we're gonna have to let this to Foresight. The problem with that is that it goes across township lines. I mean, it's West Branch and Foresight.
well, I have a question with that, because if the township has let's just use an example, a dog ordinance. If West Branch has a dog ordinance, who enforces it? The county sheriff.
I know, that doesn't sound right, and I don't know what happened with that.
So, I mean, is that him telling that he don't wanna write parking tickets? Or,
I don't know. I
you
don't
know,
know.
so,
So I'm gonna need to get back on that. It's just that I was busy last week, I didn't wanna.
right, so you know, any of our ordinances that we have to enforce out
Doesn't
there,
sound right, does it? It doesn't sound right.
that the sheriff, you know, yeah, just, so maybe I'm wrong and they don't have to enforce the dog ordinance.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was Stacy was here that time, and Stacy said she met with Brian Chalene and the sheriff,
I know.
and that they had talked all of
Yeah.
week. I
Yeah.
think it
Right.
was Stacy.
So-
No, everything was good until last week when I got an email that said that they
And it
just
did
realized
say
that,
it-
they just realized that it was only a township ordinance and they only enforce county ordinances, which.
And they did say in the email, when we got that from Jim, talking about the
Oh, from
attorney.
Iwanaki, yeah,
The attorney,
yeah.
the MDOT attorney didn't know if the county could.
Well, I think that's where he got his traction from.
So, but again, you know, if they can cover the other ordinances, they should be able to do that. I mean, we're not asking them to just sit out here and write parking tickets, but I think if you talk to Sheriff Zybert, he would tell you a different story.
Maybe.
So,
All right, so I need to work on that too.
I honestly think we stepped on Jim's toes, and it sort of peed him off after reading that email.
Iwanaki?
Yeah,
I don't know if it,
I just took it that he
I
was
don't
so
know.
set we had to have one of those studies.
I think that, well, I don't know, I didn't take it
I
that
hope
way.
we, I didn't, I
I
don't
took
want
it
to
that,
do
I took it, and Jim's an engineer, and I feel like he thinks as an engineer thinks. And I think that all he saw when he saw that was, okay, what do I have to do if I needed to do an ordinance? I need to do a control study, I need to do this, I need to do this. And then his first question was, in his brain was, why don't you have to do a control study? And then the thought was that, well, wait a second, because we're not a road commission, we're the township, and the township can write its own ordinances, and we actually jointly own the road right away. So then he needed to go back, then he didn't, then he was uncertain, so then he sent it
I
back
hope
to
I'm wrong.
Cram,
I
right, then he
just-
sent it back to Cram, which I was happy that, with the answer from Cram.
So, me too.
I was very happy. I mean, their attorney from down in Lansing comes back and says, yes, they're allowed to, the townships are allowed to do our ordinances, and they don't have to do a traffic study because they're not a road commission.
Right. So,
So, but he left that one thing open where he said, that attorney didn't make that sure whether this township ordinance can be enforced by the county.
right.
And then now all of
I
a
have
sudden
copy
the
of it
county,
somewhere.
now all of a sudden I have the undersheriff saying almost the same thing. So I feel like, yeah, he saw that and said, oh, good, now we don't have to worry about that.
Right. You know,
Because we're at
and-
it. But I don't know for sure, so. We're assuming a lot of things here.
Right.
So,
And we're in the process of developing a zoning ticket to find tickets. So I think what I will do is when we find out who makes tickets,
okay,
that we
Okay.
could ask about parking tickets out here too.
okay, so West Branch is looking at a zoning ticket, and it's gonna be something that is gonna be waterproof, so it's like, so it'll be
Sure,
we usually
because
do, yeah?
chance, you know, so we can look at, once we find, we had a place that was, supposedly made a whole bunch of governmental tickets and law enforcement tickets. Go to this website, well, we can't even get the phone number to
Oh.
it. So, yeah.
Okay,
So
so,
somewhere out there, they make tickets and we're gonna find
well,
out
I'm
what
sure,
it is.
I'm sure they do. Sure they do.
So I'm thinking that at that time, that we can look at what we need.
Okay. All right, I feel like this parking thing just never ends, but,
It's going to, because we're gonna have to just whip it into little, you know, it's like an elephant, you can't eat an elephant in one bite.
you know, that's right, and I'll tell you what, it actually is working, because
I come
people
in
got the
today.
word, and I thank Ryan for some of this, yes?
There's one street where everybody's refusing not to get off the road.
Really, which street?
It's, you're going down Stratford, like you're going around towards the roundabout.
Yeah,
It's like 2 or 3 streets before you get to the roundabout on the right. There's like 7
Crosswalk.
cars that are always parked on that road, and they're not moving off. I don't think they have anywhere to go, honestly.
Well, and on some of those streets, I'm not sure what street it is, but under the ordinance, some of them fit that is maintained, plowed by the county. And I know Jim had a street or two over there that isn't plowed by the county, and so there's no, we don't have a parking ban on that street.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's the same street or
Yeah,
not.
when you drive down Stratford and just look to your right, I wanna say Marauder, but that doesn't sound. I'm
No,
not sure.
Marauder is this way of the,
Yeah, I
so
don't
it's gotta be
know.
Hustler or,
Is up toward the church, toward the.
Yeah, it's like a couple streets before you get to the church on the right hand side.
Glowmaster is the first one, then Gooneyberg, then Hustler.
It might be Hustler.
That's not Picasso country, is it?
yes.
Everywhere else, I mean, I've driven around the neighborhood probably 3 or 4 times a week, and I've seen everybody else seems to not be having an issue with anything. That's just the only road I've seen.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's much better this year than it was last year, and we had,
Oh.
and we had a bad year this year with snow. It came early, and we've had lots of it, and there's no place to put it.
No place to put it
And
anymore,
yet everyone seems to be abiding by the parking ordinance, so I thank Ryan for getting some of that word out, some of his communication. And, other people I think have heard, and I think it's working, you know, we haven't had to give out tickets, we haven't had to have people towed, but, you know, at least now with this ordinance, the police have that option, you know, before, the police could, you know, if people were legally parked, they couldn't just go there and tow them. So, I mean, now they have the option under the ordinance that, yeah, they can tow them, or they can ticket them, or.
Can you, real quick, since we're recording this
Yes.
for everybody to watch, can you explain exactly the purpose for the parking ordinance, real quick? And why you have Forsyth and West Branch doing it for Sawyer and not necessarily for the outskirts of West Branch?
Yeah, and, well, I think that one of the main purposes of the Sawyer Operations Authority was to try to have common ordinances for Sawyer as a whole, and Sawyer is comprised of both Forsyth and West Branch. And what you had before was Forsyth would have an ordinance, and West Branch might not have one, which you had in many cases, or they'd have a different ordinance, and people did not understand why on one side of the street was one ordinance and the other side of the street was something different. So one of the things that we wanted to tackle here at the Sawyer Operations Authority was to have a common ordinance for the whole complex. So that's what we started off with a couple of things, the curfew ordinance and the parking ordinance. Was there another one?
Burn ban.
We haven't done
We didn't get there yet, we're heading there though. But the parking ordinance came to the forefront because we had trouble last winter where people were parking in the road right-of-ways in the winter, and school buses had trouble getting down the road. Ambulances said they had a couple of times they had trouble getting on the road, and they were afraid that if there was an emergency, that fire trucks would not be able to get down the road. And snowplows, I missed the snowplows. So roads weren't being plowed. We had problems with safety, and so we thought it was very important to tackle that parking ordinance right away. And it's been a challenge because we're trying to look at what other municipalities have done. We've talked about that, what Marquette does, what other municipalities have done downstate, and try to be as reasonable as we can. We had a lot of discussion. We had a lot of input. I think 90% of the people were in favor of the ban that we ended up with. I think some people didn't want to ban at all, or they were concerned that there would be no, that there were some places that would not have adequate parking, which is a problem, and we need to kind of address that as we go.
And what were some of the methods that you used to get the information out for people to attend the meeting that have to say about?
Oh, we were required, because it was an ordinance, we were required to post it, so, we had to post it for the township, and we had to put it in the mining journal, so it was in the mining journal that there was, a public hearing, and then we had the public hearing, and went from there, so, I mean, people should have known about it, and
So
we
you're
did
not
have a lot of people there.
obligated- You're not obligated to put flyers out on all the doors? or
No,
anything
no,
like that?
no. We're not. So we're required to post it, we're required to put it in the local, media, which in Marquette County is the mining journal. And we did that, and we had the public hearing, and, we took input, and we had input, it wasn't all in one direction. I mean, some people like Jim Barron, for instance, brought up some really good points that there wasn't enough parking, it wasn't designed properly, and we certainly understand that, although we thought it was important from the safety aspect and the plowing the roads, school buses, ambulances, fire trucks, that we needed to do something. And then we said it's open, we can always amend it, and decide to change it and make it a little different if we need to. That's kind of where we're at. All right?
I think that addresses a lot of ceiling hardness concerns.
Yeah, I think that,
I think we just need to address that when we get to it, right?
yeah, we'll address that when we get to that. All right, so, I wasn't quite ready to do the burning ban, but you wanna talk about that or not, Jim? What are you thinking?
Well, personally, I think that Foresight has done a very good job with that burning ban.
Okay?
I would see why we would not easily adapt it to out here.
Okay. Mike, have you read it?
I have, same thing. My initial concerns were just people with their own recreation, as in having a little bonfire in their backyard, all those sorts of things. And that's all addressed in there, so.
Yeah.
you know, it's
Yeah,
not-
I think
It's not gonna
Foresight-
prohibit that, people will still be able to do all that. It's intended to stop either fires that could potentially get out of control, and then also basically fires that just don't smell good, burning the wrong stuff.
All right, so,
So,
go ahead.
I would say if ever, I would like to see the full board be here to adopt that at that time. But again, I don't see any rewriting or rewording to that.
Okay, I'll tell you what I suggest then, is I'll contact Foresight, I'll get the burning ordinance in a Word format, and then I'll go in and change the words from Foresight to the Sawyer Operations Authority and Sawyer, and see if we can't have it for the next meeting. How's that sound?
Perfect.
So I think that we'll use generally the same format and maybe adopt the same thing. We can, when we get the full board here, we can certainly talk about the reasonableness of the fines and that. Maybe that'll be a topic, but maybe what we should have the general same outline, right? Word format from Foresight. All right, so I will do that for the next meeting. How's that sound? All right, anything else on that? Good. We got a report at a Sawyer Alliance meeting. Ryan, did you want to do that?
I wasn't there, so I can't.
Oh, we talked a lot about the waivers that I talked to you about for the kiosks and
Okay.
stuff. We talked about fundraising issues. You guys is going to cover, you guys, nonprofit is gonna cover the fundraising for a lot of the projects and programs that I'm doing. That was probably the majority of the conversation then. There was the lady from the wellness fair who's hosting that. She presented it, the information that's on the flyer there.
Pardon?
And I can't remember her name, I'm sorry.
Barbie? Barbie Thomas?
Sure.
Yeah. So she talked about the wellness fair. She was looking for craft vendors or whatever vendors who wanted to sign up and be there.
Yeah, when is the wellness fair? Is it this weekend?
It's
Sunday,
Sunday.
right?
Yeah.
This Sunday.
I put it out all over on the Facebook pages. So. Then, let's see, other than,
It's a chili cook-off too.
there was a couple other things that they talked about, but I'm sorry, I can't remember them all. Yeah. The Salvation Army is gonna be bringing out their food truck to the sled race and to provide hot dogs and cocoa and stuff. That was another thing we covered in there. It was really about my projects for the most part.
Oh, good. Okay.
Are they charging for the hot dogs?
No, it's free hot dogs and cocoa. Honor Bank is, my understanding, donated the hot dogs and stuff.
The Honor
Or-
Credit
or a
Union?
portion of it, yeah.
Yep.
And, there's various other businesses that are donating, cocoa and whatnot. All the cardboard and stuff is being donated by Dell with the furniture store, and he's got it over at, the pizza place.
Okay.
And so if anybody wants cardboard and go over there. Micasso donated all the 10 rolls of duct tape. So there's duct tape and cardboard, so you start building if you go over to Adam's place. That was pretty much,
Okay.
that's pretty much it.
All right. Communications, email from Sue Hardeman. Let me take a minute, 'cause I wanna read through this again. I read it once already, but I wanna read through it. Okay. You know, what I see from the email here, and I do appreciate any kind of input we get from anybody, but it's kind of has a little harsh tone to it, but I don't mind that. I don't mind that. People have been harsh to me before. I think though, if we flesh it out, she has an issue with the voter station, and she's heard the rumor that Forsyth might change the voter station and remove it from Sawyer and have it in Little Lake or Gwinn. And we're working on that, and I don't believe that's gonna happen. We're gonna find out more in the next few weeks. What I think's gonna happen, and I don't know for sure, but what I think's gonna happen is I think that it's too late now to change the voter location, so for the March election, is it March? Yeah, March election,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
So for the March election, I'm sure it's gonna be in the same place, at the fire hall here at Sawyer. And then, after that, we're gonna look at another place here at Sawyer. It's up to Forsyth Township, it's their voting station. We're gonna try to, although, you know, we are kind of an extension or an authority formed by Forsyth and West Branch Townships. And so we're an interface to that, and we're gonna try to talk to Forsyth, and make sure that it's out at Sawyer. Her next concern, I think, is that voices being heard and having a voter station at Sawyer so that Sawyer voices are heard. And I think that's why we worked so hard to get it out here in the first place. There was a lot of work by a lot of people years ago to get that voter station out here, so that Sawyer people residents of Sawyer would have a local voting place, a voting station, so they would be able to cast their votes, and it would promote more voting. We certainly want that. You know, we're here as a Sawyer Operations Authority to help the community here, and we want the community to vote, and we want to hear what they're saying. So I think I speak for the board here, that we want to have a voting station here on Sawyer, and we're going to try the best we can to work that out with Forsyth Township, and I'm sure they're going to. I feel very strongly that they think the same. They think they're on the same vein. So I don't know if that's a problem. The other part that she mentions here, so I kind of see three things here. The third one was, she said that she hasn't heard much of what we're doing, and if it wasn't for Ryan Lipinski and Leslie Watson, she wouldn't know that we even existed. That's a communication problem, and we do need to try to communicate better, although it is difficult because we are just an organization with no money, or very little money, very little funding. So we're trying to be this municipal authority that helps issues at Sawyer, as municipal issues happen at Sawyer, and make commonality for the residents out here, whether you be in Forsyth or West Branch, and there's only so much we can do. So I think, Ryan, you've helped a lot, and I think that if you continue with the Facebook page or whatever else, I think that's a great thing. I think that the lack of communication isn't because we want it to be a lack of communication. It's a lack of communication because we can only do so much. I don't know what else we can do, and I don't know if anyone else has anything they want to say about communication, but anything?
No, I think you covered it, about the communication.
Yeah, and I think doing this, the video thing and trying to get that out, I understand Ms. Hardeman apparently is unable to come to a location
Yeah.
because of disabilities and stuff, and
Big
and
reason for the
and I
videos
think
for
that's
others.
the perfect example of why we should be trying to get this information to be able to get to people so that they can see it if they can't make it here.
I missed the last part there. Okay.
So that's a step. We're just keep trying to do it best we can.
Okay, and I think that's right, and I think that there are gonna be some people that are homebound and can't make it out, and that's why we're allowing this video to take place, for instance, and it's all about communication, and we want communication and transparency. You know, we're here to help. I don't think any of us live here, us three, you know, none of us live here at Sawyer, but we spend our time coming to these meetings trying to help the community. It's no gain of our own. So we're gonna continue to keep doing that. There is, Tim did point out that there's a fourth subject on this email, and that was about the parking ban. Ms. Hardeman did not like the fact that we instituted a parking ban, and she said that that was instituted even though there was some concern and opposition. That's true. There was concern and opposition, although the vast majority of comments were in support of a parking ban. And at the end of the day, we're a democracy, and the majority wins and institutes rules and regulations and ordinances. And we have a board here, and the board voted on it, listened to the public. We certainly took into account everything everyone had to say. And an example of that is Jim Barron, who I respect Jim very much, and he on multiple occasions talked about how the parking ban should be or it shouldn't be, and he didn't really like the way we ended up with it, although when it was passed, he said that he respected that, and I think that's what you end up having to do as a democracy, is that we listen to everyone, we take it all, we weigh it all, and then we have to vote, someone has to vote, make a decision. And I think it was a unanimous decision when we were said and done, if I remember
Yes.
correctly. So I mean, we had to do that, so,
The
sorry.
biggest concern was, I think with her and some of the other homebound peoples, the home hospice and healthcare providers that come out, what happens to them when they have no place to park?
And that was one of the concerns we talked about. I don't see that the police agencies are gonna come and stop a hospice car or give them a ticket or anything else. And that's not what this is about. The parking ban, although it's hard to write in there these types of exceptions, and maybe we could look at that in the future, amending the ordinance to say, you know, there's an exception for healthcare cars or commercial cars or cars that do that sort of thing that have the right lettering on them. That's not what this is about. This is about people that are parking overnight and using them right-of-ways to park their vehicles, which then stop the plowing and the emergency vehicles and the school buses and all that sort of thing. So maybe that's part of the communication issue too. We haven't communicated it well enough, but we did what we could, so. Anybody else on that?
I would just echo that same thing, that the whole purpose of the parking ban is for the good of the community. We're trying to do something to make it so that, as you mentioned, the ambulances, the fire department, the snowplows and so forth. The motivation for this was not so that we're starting to move cars and give tickets, because we don't want to do that. What we want to do is create a situation where safety is first, and we can make that happen. Now, as you say, if there's ways that we can tweak that, if somebody knows a way to do that, well, then let's look at it, because we've asked that question before, and I guess it's always going to be out there. But it's a start, it gets us going, and it also, I think, is kind of giving some of the property owners, some of the landlords who don't have currently a lot of space for their people to park, to start thinking about what is it that they can do to address that. I mean, you know, everybody has got different situations, and I mean, in some cases, maybe they need to have a zoning variance or something so that they can park a vehicle in a certain place where today perhaps they're being told they can't park it. Well, that's gonna help create that momentum to get that stuff going too. We're trying to do this for the public good, and hopefully we do.
And I agree that, and we had this conversation that, you know, you have a duplex and there's a garage and a driveway, and you got mom and dad, and they have one of their kids are in college at NMU, and the other kid's going to high school, and now they have 4 vehicles.
Yeah.
And you don't have a spot for 4 vehicles, but, you know, that has to be resolved somehow with the landlord, with the property owner, on how that works, and it can't be out on the streets. It's no different than the streets of Marquette. In the winter, there's a parking ban, and that's so they can plow the streets, and you can't park in the streets, and they have the same issue. They have it's probably even a worse issue in Marquette, because you have college students and that living in these houses that have very tight parking behind the houses, and they have to do that. I mean, that's just the way it is, and I don't know what else to do with that. So we are doing the best we can, I think, and maybe you're right, I think this will get some momentum to try to change the way we do business and not rely on having to facilitate the houses. You know, maybe they'll figure that out. So we'll work through this. It's starting, you know, in life you gotta start somewhere, and this is where we started. There is a 5th thing in this email, so Ms. Hardeman had a lot of things. And one thing I do wanna say is that she made the comment that she sees the SOA as the township's trying to silence the Sawyer community, and I beg to differ. You know, the townships did not ask us to form the SOA. There were people at the Alliance that said, hey, we need the SOA resurrected. There were citizens that wanted it resurrected. I don't think the townships particularly cared that we did it. I think the townships support the idea of it occurring for the betterment of the citizens. And that's what we're here doing. We're certainly not here to silence the community, and we're certainly not here as an extension of the townships to silence the community. Anybody on that?
I agree, and if, you know, I like hearing people's concerns. And a lot of times we go with no feedback from the community.
You're with West Branch, right?
I am with
What's your
Branch.
Yeah, you know, and I think that the whole purpose of having a Sawyer Operations Authority at Sawyer was to have a forum that meets once a month, and allows the citizens to come here and talk about their concerns with, municipal concerns with the townships or otherwise. And, it's not silencing, people aren't coming. I mean, there's some people do, but they have the opportunity. You know, before we had the Sawyer Operations Authority, the only opportunity they had was to travel up to West Branch's township meeting, or to travel to Gwinn's township meeting. So by having this forum here on Sawyer, we're allowing them to stay on the complex and come and voice their concerns, and we're happy to hear them, whether it be in emails, as we did with Ms. Hardigan here, or whether they be in person, as Ryan is here regularly. We're certainly here and open to hearing any concerns that the citizens have. Right?
Yes.
I agree.
Okay. So I don't know what else to do with that. I guess we fleshed it out. Public comment. Any public comment? Ryan?
I think I'm good this time.
Really? All right. How about board member comment? Tim?
I think we've already hashed everything out tonight on, so I'm good.
Okay. Mike?
Same here. Interestingly, the other day I was cleaning out some old files, and I found my notes from the original SOA when we were meeting, and it was for about 2 or 3 years, I think, that we did that. And it was kind of interesting, all the topics that we got into. We really didn't get into any of what we're doing now at this point. It was more of the broad, well, a lot of it was the funding, because there was a fair amount of funding that was put into it, and then
And you had a fitness center you were dealing with then, right? Was that part of it?
at that, exactly. In fact, that was one of the big items, was the,
W?
and I think that was kind of, the W, as it was called. And I think that when we had that meeting where Forsyth said that they did not you know, they weren't comfortable with getting involved in actually owning and operating that facility. I think that's when it just kind of, it kind of faltered from there. At the organization, the SOA part, because West Branch was trying very, very hard to keep that open and keep it going. And financially, it was just a huge burden. Regardless of who was going to be there, it was going to be a huge burden. It was, I remember, I think hearing one time, basically it cost $30,000 a month to run that place with the utilities and so forth, which was very high because it's just a huge place. So the issue, but the one issue that we did get accomplished then, which I think it benefits us to this day, is the fire hall. That was one of the big things that was moved forward, was getting that fire hall up at the top of Voodoo and Avenue A, so that the residents here had the hopes of at least having a fire truck get here sooner than it would take to drive one from Scandia or from Gwinn. So that was, I think, one big accomplishment and a very good one.
That dropped our insurance rates.
It did, absolutely.
It did, and it helps for crash rescue, it helps for a lot of things, and you know, I got a question though, and maybe Tim could find this out for me, is that, with that, on that same vein, is that I understood then that Forsyth was gonna oversee the fire truck, although it was gonna be, actually, West Branch would be able to use it as well, although there tended to be some of this territorial thing going on. And West Branch was gonna oversee having an ambulance in the building, and they were gonna have people here to respond at Sawyer with that, but I don't know whatever happened with that. Do you have any kind of historical background on that?
No.
Okay.
The only, I think one reason why West Branch was looking at it was because through the economic conveyance, remember the old conveyances that we were doing all the time with stuff? West Branch inherited the ambulance that was left over at the hospital. And so then I think part of the thinking process then was, well, do we go to an EMS system or do we remain as a first responder? Was West Branch's.
Right, and they chose, we stay at
Yeah.
a first responder because to try to have a paramedic on and to haul, we don't have the manpower.
Yeah, you need a lot of people.
We're having trouble in Forsyth right now with that same
Yeah.
issue.
Right.
We don't have enough people.
Right,
Yeah.
so, and then, you know, because there is definite qualifications, you know.
Right.
Yeah, we just, a couple years ago, bought a brand new ambulance. I mean, it has all the bells and whistles, but we can't haul, we don't
You don't
haul.
transport.
We don't transport, because we don't have a paramedic. Now, Marquette paramedic from their ambulance can get in ours and go, then we can, but.
But that being said, that first responder is still very, very important.
Yeah,
Because it's getting somebody that's got training on the scene that can start to stabilize the situation.
Yep.
And, you know, and AEDs and all that sort of thing are accessible and that. And so the first responder thing is still very huge. And with one of the other things that happened in that whole time frame was Kelly Johnson Drive was built. Before Kelly Johnson Drive was built, the only way to get here from Marquette was either all the way through Scandia or all the way down 553 and then in on M94. So Kelly Johnson Drive took about 5 minutes easily off of that travel time for an ambulance coming from Marquette. So and there's been a lot of things that have happened. We were talking about this yesterday. It's been 25 years since the Air Force has been gone. That's, yeah, we're almost going to start pushing 2 generations here. And it's amazing the things that have happened. And a lot of good things have happened. And I think that the best thing that has happened is that this community is getting more and more as a community. That's the biggest thing. The people here are starting to realize that they are a community, and I see it driving up and down the streets with neighbors helping neighbors and everything. It's turning into a community, which is wonderful.
A lot less vandalism.
It is. Oh.
And it's evolved over time, right? It's really
Tremendous difference. When we opened our building in 2000, it was entirely different, an entirely different environment with the kids running around and you know, the kind of things that were going on in the back, you know, people illegal and all that sort of thing. And that has changed tremendously. And a lot of it is just because people are neighbors, they're watching out for each other, they're watching down the street, and they're not afraid to call and say, hey, I don't like the looks of what's going on at the end of the street, you know, things like that.
Well, you said it earlier, they've become a community.
Yeah, yeah.
And with that, vandalism stops because people care.
Right.
And the other illegal activities because people care.
Yep.
So
And it
that's-
still happens, but the beauty of it is like, you know, the Sawyer Community page on Facebook. Everybody's got cameras out now. I mean, something happens and they're saying, well, wait a minute, I got a picture of somebody walking down the street, or I got a picture of this one doing this or that. It's not a hideaway anymore, which is great.
My cameras cover half the Stroud improvement.
All right, so one last comment, oh, go ahead.
Can I comment?
Sure, go ahead.
I was involved a little bit when that ambulance was out here. Mainly because Anthony was involved in it. Anthony ran for Scandia for a little while. And it was, it was a first responder rig, but as soon as a ALS or above got into there, then they could transport. And it was important. And as Mike said, they meet out on 553. And
They
they don't
intercept?
take the person out of the ambulance into the other ambulance, the people switch.
Oh,
Right.
that's
And then the
interesting.
drivers of, say, West Branch go into Marquette General's ambulance and drive it back to Marquette.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You know
And
that?
trust me, the Marquette charges too.
Well, you get the billet, right?
Oh, yeah.
So,
And as far as the vandalism and everything out here, I'll tell you, when I first started working in the community center, it was horrible. It was really, really bad. And we decided, as people that work there, if we saw kids going over there and coming back with hands full of candy, I asked them, a little while ago you were begging for money. How did you get that? And they'd give you the blank stare, and I'd say, okay, now go back. Would you like me to come with you? And Larry said, after we were open like that for about a month and a half, we cut his shoplifting in half. So it just takes that, for the people to care, people to come in. And the thing we did with the community center too, it wasn't just for the kids, it was always supposed to be a safe haven. So if somebody felt threatened, they could come to us, and the person chasing them or whatever would not be allowed in there until we got the police there. So, and it did evolve really good.
Can I say one last thing?
Go ahead, Ryan.
The root word of community is unity, and before, there was not a lot of unification in this neighborhood.
Correct.
People were just, they didn't know each other, they didn't do anything. Facebook pages came up, and people started communicating that way, and people started doing programs in the community, like myself and others, and we started unifying the people that live here. And you can't have a community without unity, and that's what we've been building. And the more unified we get, the less bad stuff that's going on in the neighborhood. So.
No, I think you're right, and I think that, you know, even the county, when we took houses back on tax foreclosure or whatever, we looked at owner-occupied when we sold them, so they're trying to push it to owner-occupied, so people own their house rather than to landlords. And I think that helps a lot. I think it helped a lot, that you have people that are invested in living here and not just trying to, you know, one thing that happened at Sawyer was that some people saw it as an opportunity to get a bunch of housing very cheap and then rent it out and try to make money. And that caused a lot of problems. Some people did a great job. Mikasa did a great job. You know, Sawyer Village, the tribe did a great job, but some people did not. And we can go down the whole list of the ones that did not. And they were trying to just make a quick buck, I think. But now I think a couple things happen. One is you have more owner occupancy, so that they're in their own house and they care. And I think you also got rid of some of those bad landlords. We had some bad landlords. And now you have the better ones rising to the top and sticking around. And so we do still have, people do need places to rent, and they need places to live. And I think that nice places and decent places and reasonable places. And I think we're getting more of that now. So I think we have evolved. It's been 25 years, and I think we're much better than we were 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Much better.
I do have one more
Yeah.
thing. I don't know where I read this, but out on Facebook someplace. Some of the things that we were aiming toward from with the counties in help when I had the community center, are now happening. Like the church is going to be putting on programs for kids now. And, the school is gonna be doing a cooking class, which we had always planned on doing, having the garden, then teaching the kids how to can it and have for them for the time being. There's like 4 things out there now that different entities are actually picking up and doing. So if there was some way we could get that information out to the people.
Well, the battle is communication, no doubt about it, so this helps a lot, videos and
You give
Facebook
the
pages helps a lot.
information that you want put out there, and I'll get it out there, just give it to me.
So one last thing I have, and I wanna say this before we leave, is that the trail that you were working on, you know, I talked before with Scott, since we have Scott here, that maybe the county could use some of its recreation funds to pay you to fix up the trail. They can't donate money to you, but the trail, I think, is owned, isn't it on county property?
It's all on county
It's
property.
on county property. So we need to talk about that, and we've never quite fleshed that out into
Yeah,
a
it's
request,
different
but
if we do it on our own potentially. I think that may make a difference versus if
Give
we
it to some-
contracted somebody else versus donating money.
Right.
I think that could be a difference.
that we're paying him to go fix up our own property.
We would have to probably do regular contractors versus just Ryan, but Ryan could be a part of that, so.
Okay,
Well, don't forget them cans.
okay. Anyway, so we still need to do that one, sooner or later. All right, that's all I have. Anybody else? We've talked it to death. We got a small group, but they're very talkative, so I'll call this, meeting adjourned at 8:08, 8:09?
Yeah, 8 or 9.
8:09. 8:09.
I'm gonna get a copy of the side ordinances.